Hello everybody, this is Professor Pilar again, and we're doing some more cool stuff in Adobe Animate. So today, what I'd like to do is we're going to create something like this. So we're going to animate a bouncing ball interacting with the background, and then we are going to add a tail or a similar long floppy implement. I usually like to use a tail. Some people like to add floppy ears like a bunny. Um, and we're going to add some follow through and overlapping action to it. But first, we're going to create our file, then we're going to create our background, and we're going to get the ball animation down. So before we can do any of that, don't forget to create an Adobe Animate file 1920 by 1080 and 24 FPS, frames per second, industry standard. And I'm going to go ahead and create my background, which is, if you look at my file with my misspelled word there, bouncing ball with an extra A in there. I'm just going to go ahead and create a valley, a background valley. Don't forget name layers. So I called this layer background. Be as specific as possible when you're naming layers, and before you do anything, this is something that I'm already forgetting to do. I'm going to call this bouncing follow through demo. You could always rename it later, but just be as specific as possible when you're naming a file. Okay. And let's also be as specific as possible when we are naming a file, and also when we're naming layers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create my background. It doesn't have to be perfect. I like using the pencil tool just in this case. By the way, when you have the pencil tool open, there are 3 modes for the pencil tool. There's like straight, smooth, and ink. Straight is when you draw a line and it straightens it out for you. You could even draw like a freehand circle and it turns into a perfect circle for you. But you don't always want that. Smooth is where it is kind of is more faithful to your hand, but it smooths it out for you a bit. So it's kind of, in my case, looks like my line, but makes it look a little better. There's also ink, and it doesn't do any, it leaves all of the wobble in. And so, in my opinion, I think that makes it look more natural. But I'm going to split the difference and go with smooth today. So there is my valley. I want to give it like lots of bumps and stuff. For lots of bumps and crags and little bits sticking out there to give my ball something to interact with. So I want to fill this background, so let's go ahead and talk about that. I'm clicking and nothing's happening. Oh no. One thing you have to know about Adobe Animate is, unlike Adobe Photoshop, where you could just draw to the edge and fill a space, with Adobe Animate, you have to close the shape. Always close the shape. And since you're working with a background, everything outside of the white stage you do not see. So I always recommend, there we go. I always recommend going past the white stage so you don't have any little bits like sticking in, and then you'll see it in your final. So there we go. So Command S, I'm going to go ahead and stick that. That's okay. So now we don't need it anymore. I'm going to go ahead and lock it off, create a new layer, and I'm going to call it ball. And if you look at my original, let's get rid of the till. If you look at my original, I'm working rough, so that is fine. I love working rough. You could always clean it up later. So I'm going to go ahead and just I like working when I'm doing a lot of pose-to-pose animation. I like working with the brush tool. I'm gonna set it to like a kind of like a fairly thick line because it's just kind of fun to draw rough. So, and basically what's gonna happen is we're gonna work pose to pose and we're gonna plan out our animation. So our first pose is gonna be the ball coming in. And don't forget, extend the background. Oops, extend the background. Anytime you want to work with frames, you want to extend the background layer so it'll go up to where you are. Okay. So what you're doing is you're only putting like your main poses in. Insert blank keyframe. So maybe here, if the ball is going across, you'll be going. It'll be like the top of an arc. And then, so I'm only doing like my main poses right now. Keyframe. Let's put the onion skin on. And so what I'm imagining is I'm imagining that the ball is like bouncing lower and lower. So if the ball is going here, so let's go ahead and have the ball. I'm putting all my, you could always put your squash and stretch later. I'm putting some of them in. And then if your ball is going from, bouncing from left to right, don't forget your ball's traveling in an arc. Oops, let me select that. And don't forget, you're also interacting with your background. And see your ball's going lower and lower. Adding a blank keyframe. Oh no! My background disappeared. Oh what do I do? So don't forget, in Adobe Animate, if you're working in another layer and you go past the point where your background is, you just have to like extend it and just keep adding frames to it. Or if you know for a fact that you're going up to frame 25, which you don't at this point in time, you're still planning your animation, you could always like delete any extra. Onion skin is easy, makes life easy. And sometimes what I like to do is I like to drag the playhead to see how it's looking. Okay, that's good. Back. That's looking good. Okay, I almost feel like maybe the ball could end up there. Insert timeline. And then maybe like the ball could then roll to a stop. And even though it looks like we're animating on ones, which we are right now, you're going to add your in-betweens, and then you're then going to time it out so it's on twos. So that's pretty good. Maybe you could even maybe have the ball like kind of go past the point where it would stop. And let's go ahead and like copy this pose and paste it in place. So it'll have like a little bit of a settle, you know, overshoot and then settle. So very cool. By the way, you could toggle, depending on your keyboard, you can toggle from frame to frame by using the less than, minus, less than, more than keys. The little keys on the lower right that look like arrows pointing right and left. A less than, greater than keys, sorry. Okay, I am not crazy about this pose. Q. There we go. And then what we're going to do is save. And then I want to, since I've planned out my animation, I'd like to now add an in-between, add like my in-betweens here. So in order to do that, you have to extend it, then add a blank keyframe between. Now I'm going to go ahead and extend these frames. So if the ball is squashing, then you're having it just like a little more squashed than before. So I have to add an in-between there, so I'm going to go ahead and insert frame. And don't forget, you have to add that blank keyframe, otherwise you're going to end up with double frames. Now the ball is flying here, it's okay to put in like some search lines, get those arcs nice. And also don't forget, so the ball, we're doing some squash and stretch here, so I might even have the ball kind of do like a little bit of a stretch thing before it squashes. That's looking nice. So let's go ahead and in between the rest of our balls. And once you're done in betweening and you're happy with it, don't forget to extend each frame and have each frame last for 2 frames. So I'll see you on the other side, and we're going to go ahead and add our follow through and overlapping action tail. See you soon.